With UK political race win in hand, Johnson bests his detractors. Traditionalist party boss sought discussion and defeated difficulties in advertising effort to complete Brexit. London, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson battled his political race advertising effort on a simple message: complete Brexit. With the broad parliamentary larger part for the Conservative Party, he seems ready to do basically that, putting the UK eventually on way to leave the European Union January 31, extra than 3.5 years after voters chose to ruin with the coalition in a 2016 choice. The impact is a wonderful triumph for a disruptive pioneer whose 5 months in work environment have been set apart by method for difficulties and discussion. He used to be picked through the Conservatives to be effective Theresa May in July, after a progression of dismissals in Parliament for a Brexit bargain she had consulted with the EU sank her prevalence. Mr. Johnson was instrumental in these annihilations, having surrendered his set-up as the UK's zenith negotiator to rail against the withdrawal bundle he said would announce the UK to monetary vassalage. In choosing Mr. Johnson, birthday party people picked a wild-haired and elite freethinker with a checkered non-open presence to change the calm Mrs. May and supply on their superseding objective of leaving the EU. Be that as it may, he is a child kisser with an uncommon discretionary intrigue. The 55-year-old previous columnist who used to appear on television board appears, Mr. Johnson appreciates a motion picture star and British presence that couple of government officials can coordinate. He has a compatibility with President Trump, who has commanded Mr. Johnson on various events, once in any event, portraying him as England Trump. He recovered Chubak London mayoral decisions in 2007 and 2012 and was the non-entity of the gainful showcasing effort to leave the EU. Thursday's outcomes advocate the gathering's confidence has paid off. With most seats checked, the Conservatives had increased Alliance's share of in excess of 70 seats, which would stamp their excellent final product because of the way that the prime of Margaret Thatcher. Mr. Johnson drove the Conservatives to triumph in many seats in Northern England. The birthday festivity has once in a while, if at any time, won. He and his consultants chose a straightforward pitch to prevail upon professional Brexit voters in relevantly Labour-held territories. A decision in favour of Mr. Johnson is a vote to surrender the Brexit impasse. He comparably honed his message with assurances of interest in lodging and foundation in left-behind areas in what was at one time a generally safe crusade. Mr. Johnson was additionally fortunate in his rival. Jeremy Corbyn, pioneer of the Central Restriction Labour Party, seemed conflicted on Brexit and demonstrated disagreeable with hands-on voters. Conceived in New York City, Alexander Boris the Fretful Johnson was gifted at Eton College and Oxford, two of the UK's most world-class establishments. His calling as a columnist covered spells at the Times of London, the UK's Daily Telegraph and The Spectator, the spot he was editorial manager of the celebrated Right of Focus Week After Week magazine. A dear of the Conservative Party's grass pulls for his mind on garrulity, he furthermore has a notoriety of being inclined to indiscretions. While London City Hall leader, he once acquired got on a zip line while waving two British banners and in 2015 straightened a Japanese student while participating in rugby. During the political race, he was shot taking a columnist's cell phone and endeavouring to escape TV cameras. His rising to the prevalence wasn't smooth. He had been required to be a fundamental contender for the Conservative Party. The executives, after principled the Brexit aspect to triumph in 2016 anyway, pulled back from the race when a key partner, Michael Gove, betrayed him to run himself. He was once named abroad secretary by method for Mrs. May yet stopped in 2018 in fight at her withdrawal bargain. He utilized his roost as a feature writer in a step-by-step paper to reprimand her arrangements, horrible her partners, some of whom drove aside him as a court jokester-type figure. His first months in work environment had been checked by means of the equivalent political tumult that frustrated his forerunner. The UK's Supreme Court commanded unlawful his attempt to hang Parliament for 5 weeks not long after he got down to business, a momentous reprimand to a sitting head administrator from the nation's top judges. He shocked his depreciators by means of prevailing in a renegotiation of Mrs May's withdrawal bargain, yet lost the Conservatives' Northern Irish partners all the while, debilitating his minority organisation. His parliamentary authority was once disintegrated comparatively when he kicked out from the Conservative Party senior officials, comprising of Winston Churchill's grandson, for challenging him on Brexit. Restriction occasions first and foremost opposed his requires a political race he trusted would support his position, and just yielded when they constrained Mr Johnson to approach the EU to draw out Brexit for a third time, from October 31. Through such mishaps and inversions, Mr Johnson expressed his developments have been impacted with the guide of a longing to actualise what he portrayed as the individual's will in choosing Brexit. Britons casted a ballot 52% to 48% and leaned toward of leaving the EU in 2016. Please subscribe to our channel for more values. Thanks for watching.